Well, so let me call the meeting to order. And as our first item of business, I'd like to move to approve the minutes of our November 4th meeting.
Moved.
Seconded.
And do we each do our aye or do we do a roll call?
We have to do a roll call.
Okay, roll call. All right. Chairperson Rana,
Aye.
Clerk Brown,
Aye.
Board Member Turner.
Aye.
Motion approved 3-0.
Great, thank you. So we'll move now to old business. And I think our first item was outstanding fines and board actions, of which I believe there aren't any, but I wanted to check.
Madam Chair, if I could have the floor for a minute to discuss the case of Ryan Maloney, which was the case I said I would dispatch on behalf of the board and for which the board voted to allow me to do such. I sent a letter to Michelle Thompson, the campaign finance attorney for the state, and brought her up to date on all of our attempts to contact Mr. Maloney and his refusal to answer any of our letters or emails or calls or anything. And so I said, for your action, I did copy all the members of the board and the election supervisor on that letter. So it's now part of the public domain. It is in the file, and anyone who wants to see that can contact Karen Wheeler, and she can make a copy of that available to them. But I did ask for the state's action on taking the appropriate action that they choose to resolve this matter. So I consider it out of our hands, and I consider it no longer to be worthy of our agenda.
Well, thank you so much for that update and also your work in moving it along and following up. So thank you. I don't anticipate that there's discussion, but let me check to see if there is discussion of that. Okay, great. I'd like to move next to our next item, which is the potential voter fraud allegation and an update on that. And I'll turn it over to Karen Wheeler.
And once again, I have no update. This is getting to be kind of a routine, isn't it? But the prosecutor's office has not given me any information, which makes me believe that nothing has happened.
Okay. Thank you for that update. And we also—
Madam Chair?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would move that a letter be drafted to the people pursuing this investigation within the state police to ask for an update, just to kind of push it back to the top of the pile on their desk.
Yeah, and I would second that. I don't know if I'm allowed to second that, but I would second that if I think I am, right? Yes, okay, good. So I second that. And I don't know if we want to have any discussion or.
I certainly agree that we need to move it to the top of the pile. I was in Indianapolis yesterday and we were talking about the level of fraud that may have occurred during the presidential election. It's not much. There are only 2 counties of which I am aware, and depending, we would be the 3rd county if this moves forward and there is prosecution. But they were certainly talking about that with respect to some of the Secretary of State's legislative proposals that are coming down the pike.
Thank you for that update as well. I think it sounds like we should all just move to a vote on this, and then maybe when we draft our letter, consider all of this.
Okay, who shall draft the letter?
That is an excellent question. Are you volunteering?
I cannot volunteer to draft this letter.
Could we, Karen, are you the person who had the last contact? Maybe we could follow up on that, and the letter could come from me as chair, or I'm not sure what the.
I would, I hate to put work on someone else, but I would think since the election supervisor, Karen Wheeler, has had all of the contacts with them, that perhaps she could just draft a simple letter to them requesting an update at the request of the election board.
I can do that.
Thank you, Ms. Karen.
Thank you. So do we need to move to approve that, or?
It's official work. It doesn't hurt.
Okay. Great. Would you like to make that motion then?
I'll make that motion. Yes, I move that the board request the election supervisor to produce a formal inquiry to the state police regarding the update of the election fraud issue.
I will second.
Great. And
And don't we have two motions going here? And we didn't take a roll call on the first one.
oh, that's right. Can we make the second motion supersede the first? Because it was just a more detailed explanation of the first. Is that possible? I'm sorry, and I should have been keeping track of that.
Who made the first motion? They can withdraw it.
Yeah, I think that was me. So I will
Yeah.
withdraw that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm learning about Robert's rules as we go. So I'm practicing on my feet. Okay, so I withdraw the first motion and would like us to move to vote on the second motion that Mr. Turner raised.
Okay, so we're going to have the roll call. Chairman Rana,
Yes.
Clerk Brown,
Yes.
Board Member Turner,
Yes.
and the motion is approved 3-0.
Thank you. We'll move back to Board Member Turner for an update on the re-precincting review.
Yes, the re-precincting review, which was done by a board of, or a committee of 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, appointed by the county commissioners. We did complete our final report and we submitted it to the commissioners. The commissioners approved our final report yesterday at their meeting. So we are in, we're not dismissed, we're on hold pending any future need by the commissioners for an additional look at any census related changes required to county borders and lines.
Well, thank you for that update, and thank you also for your service on that committee and being part of the review as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys worked so hard in such a compressed time frame, and we are incredibly grateful to you and to Karen, Jared from the surveyor's office, Regina Moore. I know I'm missing someone. Who is that person?
Yeah, Ed Robinson.
Ed Robertson. He's such a lovely man. Thank you to you all. That was a Herculean effort, and we're incredibly grateful.
Thank you.
And we had Joyce Polling in there.
Oh, Miss
Yes.
Joyce. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss Joyce.
Well, thank you again. It's wonderful to know how much our community members care about these important issues and contributing their time and effort. I'd like to move next to our next item of the voting space allocation update, and we'll turn it over to Clerk Brown.
All righty. Good afternoon. The long and short explanation for the voting space allocation with respect to my original request to the Board of Commissioners, where I was asking for the entirety of the Johnson Hardware Building, is that needle has moved very little. You may recall from a recent work group meeting, efforts made on the record to ensure that the election board understood the answer to the original request for the entirety of the Johnson Hardware Building. From my perspective, there were only 3 possible options in terms of an answer to the question. The options as I see them are yes, no, or not yet. Chairwoman Rana, I appreciate your efforts to secure one of those responses. My takeaway was that there was nothing but obfuscation on the part of the board. They wouldn't say yes, they wouldn't say no, they wouldn't say not yet. I understood that the answer to the request was no for 2022, but of course that only gets us through 2022. It doesn't allow for us to do any advanced planning. There's still a couple of things that give me pause for concern because we too had questions as a result of their September presentation for which we've received no answers. Instead, my place on the agenda was moved to the very bottom of the agenda, and then I would be told to keep it short because they had other meetings to attend. On one meeting, I was cut off before I even got a chance to get the sentence out. The work session was adjourned. Or as in yesterday's case, my request was completely removed from the agenda despite my having submitted requests for either myself or a person in my stead to present at each Wednesday's work session through the end of 2021. Other presenters are encouraged to present as long as they like, but I am asked to be brief. If the topic is playgrounds or parks or projects that would make the county more beautiful, and I am not saying that those things are not important, you get the happy, smiley, agreeable commissioners nodding their heads in affirmation. When I present about expanding the footprint at the Johnson Hardware Building, I am met with the resting tough faces. I don't know if this is serendipitous or not, but following the last working group meeting, I was copied on an email exchange that took place between a voter who takes advantage of early voting opportunities at Johnson Hardware and the Board of Commissioners. It would appear that that voter is supportive of my request before the Board of Commissioners. I wasn't copied throughout that exchange, but I was added at the very end when the voter wanted some clarification on the convention center space used during the presidential elections. I received this email just prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. I have not had a chance yet to respond to that correspondence, but it is my full intention to do so. And I will copy both of the boards on my response and include the original exchanges between the commissioners and the voter. You may read it differently than I do, but as I read through the thread, I find the commissioners to have responded with revisionist history and, in fact, outright lies. They continue to say that we said the renovations provided all of the space we needed, when the truth is that the election supervisor remembered something she meant to ask for and was told by the commissioner's representative that she would get what she asked for, but no more. We got what we asked for, but no more. They continue to trot the lie that we did not utilize the Nat U Hill meeting room. When I visited early and absentee voters workers in the Nat U Hill room on several occasions, I also requested confirmation from my chief deputy clerk that the space was utilized for 20 days in October. The problem, if you can call it that, was that there was no evidence of their having been there because they cleaned up after themselves, including taking out their own trash. They amended that correspondence to say that we only used it a handful of times, but I would not consider 20 days to be a handful of times. During their September presentation, one commissioner even intimated that we had ballots in the back of a U-Haul truck. Once I noted that due to the limited capacity for people to be in the Johnson Hardware Building due to the pandemic, my employees had to work out of the back of the truck. When the truth is, the truck contained PPE, personal protective equipment, provided to every county clerk by the Secretary of State for use during the elections. They continue to bring up vote centers and satellite locations when there is no bipartisan support for either at this time. They talked about our not taking advantage of the Monroe County Convention Center when actually we did. We were forced to utilize that space for poll worker training and equipment practice because the 915 square feet of space that we had been using for years in the North Showers building was not conducive to training 450 poll workers and allow for the necessary social distancing due to the pandemic. Previously, we had been cramming people into multiple trainings in that small room and making do. As I've previously stated, the pandemic only magnified that this was an untenable environment. By the way, I will be forwarding the commissioners and the voter a copy of the invoice that we received from the convention center for payment for utilization of that space. It was also in that correspondence that I realized that they were expecting me to offer a suggestion as to where our Johnson Hardware neighbors should be moved, should the Johnson Hardware building be turned over to my office for elections. I had not realized that that was conditional upon their decision, but my immediate response would be that if the spaces they offered me were good enough for my office, why would they not be good enough for our current neighbors? With that being said, one commissioner did state in the correspondence, they provided the answer that the commissioners would not state on record at the work group meeting in response to Chairperson Rana's question, that she was not in agreement with my request for the entirety of the Johnson Hardware building. I know the vote centers and satellite facilities would be of inestimable value to elections, but I am only one vote. I have made clear that I would vote in favor of both. At this time, it takes a unanimous vote by the members of the election board who were appointed by their party chairpersons to represent the interests of their respective parties. There is no point in my bringing anything before the board for which I do not believe I would secure a unanimous vote. Quietly and behind the scenes, knowing that I could not communicate with either of you, I met with Allen County Clerk Nancaro and his team for satellite options in an effort to reignite the possibility of satellite locations in Monroe County. He gave me some very good ideas. And again, behind the scenes, I vetted some locations for feedback, doing my level best to present possible options that would be as fair and equitable as possible for all of Monroe County voters. I tried to divide the county into a quadrangle. I tried to divide the county into thirds, going north to south and then west to east, with options that would not call for voters coming all the way downtown from more remote locations of the county. Unfortunately, I only received feedback conducive to bipartisan support for one location. As I attempted to explain to the commissioners, this lends to the optics that the election board would be favoring one area of Monroe County over another. The only bipartisan support I have at this time is for the Johnson Creamery building, which is located right across the street from the Johnson Hardware building. This is something in which I would be supportive. I have also quietly presented a proposal for vote centers on election day that does not involve cutting any current election day polling sites. In fact, I would be willing to add more polling sites. I've not received any feedback to indicate that moving forward with my proposal would result in a unanimous vote by the election board. Finally, I believe the board may be aware of a proposal submitted by Guy Loftman to the Board of Commissioners. Guy Loftman is a former Monroe County Election Board member and thus uniquely qualified to understand the hurdles we face when it comes to overseeing elections. He had forwarded this correspondence to me for accuracy, and he read it into their meeting minutes during public comment. At the work session, I was attempting to move the discussion forward by simply asking if they were amenable to even considering Mr. Loftman's proposal. Somehow that question turned into one of the commissioners asking if we had met and voted on it, as though we had met, considered, and voted on a proposal that was submitted to them. Intimations that we are meeting and voting without the benefit of noticing meetings is incendiary and insulting. At this time, it disheartens me to say that I think the commissioner's response to my original request has been nothing short of a shell game played at the highest level in an effort to run out the clock before the 2022 elections, because they don't want to go on record with a hard no in response to that original request. Sadly, the only losers in this are the voters of Monroe County. I think it's easy to think you would make the perfect decisions regarding the facilitating of elections in Monroe County when you've served as a poll worker for one or two times for elections that are nowhere comparable to current elections, and you do so from the perch of your home office chair. Here's the truth. The 2020 elections were difficult, but I am proud to say that with all of the challenges we faced, we still oversaw the second highest voter turnout for a presidential election in Monroe County. It was second only to the election in which Barack Obama was elected president. With all of that being said, I'll put you in remembrance that I am on record as being amenable to utilizing the old Napa space for 2022 to store our voting equipment and to conduct poll worker training, and the space on the north end of the showers building for absentee ballot requests that come by mail. Following the work group meeting, the most recent one, Mr. Crone came by to inquire as to when we might want him to make arrangements for us to see the Napa building. I presume that the most logical time would be following this meeting so that we could recess rather than adjourn and discuss the security needs for that space. And I look forward to meeting with whomever is available to do so. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And also, I did want to say also thank you for your service to the voters of Monroe County, and, you know, as in your position as an elected official, but also, you know, in your capacity leading the board and our voting efforts.
You're very kind. Teamwork makes the dream work. I got a great team.
Thank you. I agree. This is a wonderful team. So I just wanted to, I guess my first question is, should we open this to discussion? And then I believe I might have jumped ahead a little bit on the agenda, so I want to circle back. But first, I just want to ask if there's discussion or comment. Okay, thank you. What I skipped, I was using the agenda.
So did Karen talk about the card mailing for statewide voter list maintenance?
Yes, that is what I missed. Item C. Okay, thank you. I thought that I had gotten a message about C, but now I understand it was item C. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I apologize for that. And thank you again, Clerk Brown. So I guess just to make sure I've covered all our bases there, I didn't see anyone's hands raised for discussion. So so I'd like to move back, if it's okay, to agenda item C on our agenda, which is to move back to Karen Wheeler for an update on our statewide voter list maintenance card mailing. And I apologize again for skipping over.
Not a problem on my part. So our VLM, or the voter list maintenance, is very much dwindling. I don't think we've gotten any cards or anything really in the last 2 weeks or so, but we will be getting our last shipment from the state. It would be December 22nd. And of course, I never have any idea. We may have a lot, we may not have much at all. We never know until they arrive. So that will be our last. We'll finally get that finished up. And it's gone very well all along. And of course, we're getting people in better shape with their voter registrations. Those that need to be made inactive have been made inactive. Obviously, if people send back their card and say that they have moved or they have not moved, all these things were taken in consideration. So I think it went really well. If there aren't any other thoughts with that, I had a couple other things for old business that I
Just
forgot to tell you.
one question to the election supervisor. Should we continue to carry this on the agenda?
I would say we don't need to. I would be very shocked that there will be anything to follow up, but if it does, I will let you know in January, but I don't think there will be.
Thank you so much for that question and clarification. So I've made a note of that. And if before our next meeting, if you could let us know if there's an update, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And you wanted to move to some other old business as well. Is that...
Yes, I just thought you probably are interested in our last, I believe it was the last meeting, we talked about making another precinct, being Blossom 3. And I did submit that on November 5th of this year, and it's still in pending. And that seems to be kind of typical. Things take a long time for those things to actually turn over and become real, to become realized there. But so I've done my part and I'm waiting for the state. And I just thought you might want to know that.
Okay, so this is something we should continue to carry on the agenda, the status of being Blossom 3.
Yeah, we want those 7 voters to have their precinct, not a small precinct, but potentially a lot bigger. And then I had one more thing too that we talked about quite a while ago, and that is our Easy Vote. That's the campaign finance app online so that our candidates can do all their CFAs, campaign finance act, all that paperwork online. I thought it would be moving along a lot faster, but talking to our representative with Easy Vote, his name is Patrick. He told me, I've contacted him a couple times, but I got another message today that we're still not ready to go online because they're still working on our forms, but it should go, well, he didn't really say, he said it should. They're doing internal testing. That's the process they're in at right now. And if everything goes good, we should have it next week. If they find any errors or issues, it could be delayed, which gives me a little concern because, you know, we have candidate filing as of January 5th. We obviously can do the online or the paper always, that's always an option. But I thought we would have it in line a little bit better, but we can't do anything to make it any faster when it's at their end. And there's only 3 counties in Monroe County that are, or in the state of Indiana that are doing it. We're one of 3. So there's 2 other counties that are also waiting. So it could work really easily next week, or we could be delayed.
Question.
Yes.
If a candidate or a prior candidate has paperwork that is physically in our system, will they be able to upgrade that or complete a delinquency or a missing information from a paper form on this online form?
We are, excuse me, we are able to upload all those. The problem with that is that once they're done that way, they're not searchable the same way, but they will be there. And right now we have everything on the county website also. And so I'm not for sure how much advantage it would be, but I would think that's probably the direction we will go. And once we get it going and we feel a little bit more comfortable with it, I would think we would want to upload what we have with the current candidates, not candidates that are no longer candidates, you know, that have closed their account, just the current ones. That's how I would see it. And I think that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm also wondering too, perhaps the candidates, you know, we're getting inquiries. We've had a couple exploratory committees opened. And of course, we can't do that online. So maybe we'll miss some of the people coming in right away. They don't want to do it, or we won't have enough time to get them acquainted with it. But I'm hoping throughout the year, then we'll still be able to convince them to go online, because what I hear, once they do it, they just absolutely love it. And it's so much easier for them. But it might take a little time to get that done. Or maybe I'll be surprised and everyone's going to jump in right away.
Thank you so much for those updates and also your hard work in getting the new precinct and all of that together. And thank you also for the clarifications, which I've made for our next agenda for our next meeting. And I just wanted to make sure we covered everything okay, and are ready to move to the next order of business. Okay, thank you. So we'll move now to item 4, which is new business. And our first item is...
Small business owners. Oh, I am so sorry. I don't know what happened. My apologies. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to move to board member comments, so that was perfect timing. And I believe board member Turner, did you have
Yes.
a comment? Okay.
Yes, I did. Every 2 years, there comes an opportunity for members of the election board to receive training in Indianapolis. And this is a very important piece of training for anyone who is going to work with voters or work with voting law. So this is also an opportunity for a new person to receive training. Given that, I am announcing today that I'm resigning from the board effective today. I do this for personal reasons. I have thoroughly enjoyed my work with the board up to this point. I consider this to be one of the bright spots of my retirement, which I'm not doing very good at it, but I would like to introduce to everyone, and I would like to ask the IT person to give a full panel membership during this meeting to Mr. Donovan Garlitz. Donovan is the president of Indiana Limestone Fabricators. He's less than half my age and more than twice as capable as I, and will do a great job on this board. I really am going to miss this, but I'm not going that far away. And during the next election cycle, I think you'll be seeing me as a volunteer wherever I can be the most help. So I do regret this, but the 2-year cycle, I think, really presents an opportunity for a new person to get the right training at the beginning of that cycle. If Donovan would like to say a few words, I think it would be great if we could hear from him.
Well, thank you so much. And I see that I believe Mr. Garlitz is unmuted. If you would like to speak, and then I wanted to speak after you when you're done. And let me see if I can help unmute. Mr. Garlitz, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'm not hearing him.
Might be not a panelist quite yet. So maybe if I can, this is beyond my technical capabilities. I can figure out how to move to.
Hello, Donovan.
Okay, something's in the chat. He said,
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay.
He should be able to unmute.
He appears to be unmuted, but we're not able to hear him.
Okay, it says unmuted on my screen. Do you want to try to speak and see if we can hear you?
Nothing.
Okay, let me just trying one more thing to see if this makes any difference. Yeah, I guess, do you want to try one more time to see if we can hear you? Well, maybe while we try to work on okay, so he's going to try and log in. So maybe we can give that a minute as he tries to log in by phone. But I guess if you don't mind me taking this moment, first of all, to thank you for your service and just it's been just such an honor and privilege to work with you. And I really appreciate that you showed me the ropes as, my personal appreciation, but also that, all that you've done for our community and the work that you've put in on the board. And I really think one of the wonderful experiences about being on this board has been the opportunity to get to work with you and get to know you. And I hope we've set an example for bipartisan cooperation and what we can do when we can get together and talk about what's best for our community and, how we care about our neighbors and what we can do. So I just wanted to take that moment to thank you, and that of course we'll really miss you, but I know that you're close to my neighborhood, so hopefully that means you in the neighborhood as well, and as well that you have more time to actually enjoy your retirement, and we'll have the free time to take some time for yourself as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I too would like to say, Mr. Howell, oh Lord, I'm not gonna cry. I can do this without crying. Mr. Howell, you literally came to budget hearings with us on the night that you started as an election board member. And you have been a phenomenal colleague to work with. I will dearly, dearly miss working with you. Mr. Donovan, I don't even know you yet, but you have incredible shoes to fill. I look forward to working with you, and we will embrace you and welcome you. But Mr. Howell, you will be missed. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And it looks like Mr. Donovan is back on and unmuted. Would you like to try
Yes.
and see if,
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we hear
wonderful.
you. We hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And Mr. Turner, thank you for the nice introduction. And I am well aware they're big shoes, but I'm not sure I have big enough feet. So I will do my best. And I very much look forward to getting to know and working with all of you and for the all the voters in Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. Garlitz.
And I'd like to add my thanks as well, but also our warm welcome. I'm excited to have a chance to work with you. And I felt the same way. I do feel like I had big shoes to fill, and Mr. Turner, you're leaving big shoes to fill behind, and we'll try our best. But I just want to thank you again. And I wish I could move to have a party in your honor or something like that. I mean, I'm sure I could move to that. I don't know if that's part of Robert's rules or not, but
You know what? He won't be an election board member anymore. I bet you we could meet up with him. A little party.
that's true.
Yeah, at the usual place.
Somebody tell me where that usual place is.
I don't know, but that's a great name for a place if someone would just name it that.
And can it involve Moscato? That's all I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for all of you. And I just wanted to make sure, I think I've given everyone a chance for discussion, but just in case I skipped anyone. Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to move to our next item, which is the public comments, and see if there are any public comments. And as with our past meetings, should anyone like to make a public comment, you can do the raise hand function on the Zoom. Or if you have any issues with that, we know our chat is working. The mute might not be unmute and mute might not be working as well, but the chat is, so you can post it in the chat if there's anyone who would like to make a comment. So I'll just see if there's any, I don't see any hands raised or anything in the comment in the chat box. So then I'll move to our next item, which is an announcement that our next election board meeting will be January 6th at 1 p.m. And in the meantime, I know there's lots of holidays and things going on between them. So I wanted to wish you all the best for the holidays, and especially Mr. Turner, I hope you get some well-earned vacation time. And
Thank you.
to thank you all again, and it'll be the new year when we meet next. So wishing you all a happy new year as well. And I understand that we're going to recess as opposed to adjourn, so that
Yes,
we may have.
Madam Chair, if you will entertain the motion to recess, I believe that our appointment at the old Napa building is at 3 o'clock. And so if you will entertain my motion to recess rather than adjourn, so that we can meet Mr. Cron and Jack. Looking forward to seeing our Jack at the old Napa Center. I don't have an address for that. I know it's at 3rd and Walnut. I should probably get familiar for 2022 with the actual physical address of that location, but across the street from the Bloomington Transit Center at 3rd and Walnut. Thank you.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
My last official act.
Oh, Mr. Howe.
And I guess, should we do a roll call and
Oh,
have a final roll call, Mr. Turner?
so we need a roll call.
Yeah.
All right, Chairperson Rana,
Yes.
Clerk Brown,
Yes.
Board Member Turner,
Yes.
and the motion is approved 3-0.
Well, thank you so much. So we'll end now. And as I said, I wish you all the best for the upcoming holidays and the new year. And welcome again to Mr. Donovan. And we look forward to working with you. And best
It's
of luck
Mr.
again.
Garlitz.
Mr. Garlitz, sorry. And best of luck to you for the holidays as well. So thank you.